see.
Guy, I can make millions of dollars and use the exact same tax loopholes that a Donald Trump would use and pay effectively no tax. And does that make me a bad guy, or did I just study the tax code?
It makes you a bad guy, yeah.
Is the economy rigged? Middle ground. I don't think I'm going to like this, folks. Because in order to have a middle ground, you need a dude like me. Or like one of y'all in the chat. You need like a hardcore Marxist-Leninist who deeply studied the works of Marx and the theory of scientific socialism to educate all these randos. But instead, what do they have? They have rich people arguing with poor people. Oh, so this is based on their material conditions. Okay, I may have spoke too soon. Maybe the producers of Jubilee are educated Marxist-Leninists, have deeply studied scientific socialism, and so they know that people are a product of their material conditions, in that the ideas that we have are largely conditioned and shaped by the material realities which we find ourselves in, which are products of historical development. So now they have people who represent the rich in our modern society, and those who have lived in a poor environment, and now they're going to have them debate. Let's get to it.
Step forward if you agree. Being poor is a choice.
I do not want to be disingenuous to ignore systemic issues that we all experience, but I feel like it's 2021 and there's a lot of free resources. I mean, Facebook has a lot of free courses. I think that poor is also a mindset.
I agree. Originally, when I came out here, I started straight at the
Poor is a mindset. How many people starve to death per year? Around 9 million people die of hunger and hunger-related diseases, a 2017 estimate showed. So why didn't they just change their mindset? They didn't hustle hard enough. They didn't grind hard enough. If the person in your village who has to walk 10 miles to get clean water every day dies, you just got to change your mindset. You got to say, I'm going to do my job, which the community is dependent on, and I'm also going to walk 10 miles to get clean water, right? And people who aren't willing to grind like that and sacrifice, you know, they're just going to be stuck being poor, right? Or look at Iraq. You know, why didn't you just stop the U.S. from invading you, bombing your country to a pre-industrial state, and killing millions of civilians? Those civilians should have grinded harder. That's why they're stuck in poverty. This person gets it.
homeless shelter. I had to flee from domestic violence from my family. Most people in general don't choose to be poor, but since I've been here specifically in LA, a lot of people outside, they don't want to come into the shelter because they'd rather be in the tents.
I mean, I grew up poor, so I have been on both sides of the coin, and I can reflect and look back on some of the lifestyle choices that I was making, some of the people that I was hanging around. So I don't think that people can initially control if they're born into poverty, but I think that there is a certain level of control that comes along with being able to have that determination.
And for sure, there definitely is, in the United States, obviously there are people born into horrific conditions, you know, and the number one determinant of your level of wealth in the United States is your parents' wealth, right? So largely wealth is inherited, and 78% of the country lives paycheck to paycheck. So, you know, these are people working essential jobs which are essential to the community and the functioning of society. And they're working full time, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck. That's 78% of people. So, you know, even though there is some level of control that you have, if you grind hard enough and you pull yourself out of poverty, one, it's largely done in capitalism by stepping on other people, by exploiting other people, by being selfish, by choosing to forego experiences in order to save money. You know, I'm going to hoard my money rather than spend it to do something that may bring me joy. And it's, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about that. You do have You do have some control, but the whole goal is to be one of the exploiters instead of one of the exploited. That's the American dream, rather than looking at things from a more communal and societal perspective, which, this largely shows the effect of individualism, which is the logic of capitalism, right? The logic of capitalism is you're on your own, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So as I was talking about with the base of society, the economic structure of society determines our ideas. The idea here is that you just need to work hard enough, and then you can pull yourself out of poverty, which is what you should do, right? Which is what makes you a good person, which is a valuable ideal to chase. Not contributing to your community as much as you can. Not being the most selfless kind of person you can. It's all about hoarding the dollar, the universal equivalent, so that you can not be poor.
Resilience, yeah.
Can I have the disagreeer step forward?
We need to realize that these people are on the street not because of their own choosing, but because of the system that we live in.
Oh, and I was going to say they also ignore imperialism, right? These are also people who are like, living in LA, I've found that you can get really rich. It's like, okay, have you tried living in Afghanistan? Have you tried living in Sudan? Have you tried living in a country that the U.S. is holding under embargo, economic embargo, like Cuba, Venezuela, or the DPRK? Have you tried living in a country who the U.S. has destabilized and bombed and done everything they could to destroy, like Libya, which had one of the highest standards of living in all of Africa? But after the U.S. overthrow of Gaddafi is now entirely destabilized and war-torn to the point where they have an open-air slave market? Do the slaves in Libya just need to grind harder? Is their poverty and enslavement just a mindset? Maybe.
Perpetuates these things.
If I could speak to that, I come from a family that once relied on welfare and food stamps, and I've been blessed enough to make millions of dollars in real estate. But had I bought real estate from 2005 to 2008...
So, exactly what I was talking about. The whole goal is to become an exploiter rather than exploited, right? So he says, my family was poor. We relied on the welfare state, on welfare programs in order to support ourselves, in order to survive. But now, now I own other people's houses, and they have to pay me every month just for living there, right? And those people may be on welfare. Those people may be struggling to get by. But I'm still gonna take 30% of their income every week because I'm a landlord and I own their house, right? And that's the American dream. Rather than being one of the exploited people paying rent to someone just because he owns the land that you live on, you become the landlord who owns, the person who extracts the money that people make from working hard at their jobs every month, on a level so large that you can become a multimillionaire. The American dream, becoming an exploiter.
I'd probably be bankrupt today. I just bought it at the right time.
People wish to be rich, they don't want to be rich. The difference is, do you take action? That being said, I agree with a lot of your points you're making about people.
I don't want to be rich, though. That's the thing, like we were talking about earlier, I want to contribute to my community. I want to have good experiences. I want to spend time with my friends and the people I care about. I want to read philosophy and thoughts from really smart people. I want to play my guitar and hang out with my wrestling team and practice wrestling and develop ourselves in that way and get as good at wrestling as we can, so that we can have competition with other teams, and I want to see my friends not living in poverty, right? I want to see my friends who are struggling, who are massively in debt, not have to struggle and be in debt so that they can focus on developing themselves, on being the best person that they could be. That's the kind of society I want. I don't want to take action to be rich, because if I were to take a bunch of actions to be rich, it would involve exploiting people. It would involve stepping on others in order to get to the top, The whole system is built that way. Because the most money, surplus value, is generated by exploiting the labor of workers. And the mass of society are workers. So, I have no desire to be the kind of person who lives in abundant wealth by knowing that I'm exploiting the hard work of the rest of my society.
not really having the resources or the opportunity to have any kind of action plan.
Some people don't even want to be rich. Like, I don't want to be rich. Like, but I also don't want to be poor. I'm happy in the middle. And I would want to live in a society where they could perpetuate people to lift themselves out of poverty through programs and just be in the middle.
Billionaires should not exist.
I don't see how anyone could ever spend $1 billion. It's not a necessity to have that much money, and I feel like there is a certain cap in which like you can completely survive and thrive with this.
This is like a weird argument, and I actually don't like this argument, because part of socialism is increasing the productive forces, right? Increasing what we produce, and with, you know, the climate crisis also changing the way that we produce, so it's being done sustainably with the planet, while also, you know, managing to meet people's needs. So, you know, there's not necessarily a cap on how far human society can go, right? How far human society can advance. Because once we have socialism, you know, and we take the $700 billion that we're spending on the military budget, you know, and we use that to fund NASA, if we use that to fund scientific progress and space exploration, you know, there's no limit to the kind of amazing society that human beings are capable of creating, that human beings using their labor and labor power and our minds in conjunction with our labor power are capable of creating. You know, there's no cap, really. And I get what they're saying, you know, there should be a cap on the individual wealth of it, you know, there should be a cap on the wealth of individuals. Which, you know, I don't think the cap on billionaires, you know, I don't think we should just cap the wealth that they can make. I think billionaires are people who game the stock market. Billionaires are worthless, you know, they contribute nothing to society, they contribute no labor. All they do is manage their own stock portfolios in order to maintain their wealth, and, you know, they expand their empires by buying up other businesses and expanding their operations elsewhere, and it's all for their own benefit. It's all to bring them more profit, all to bring them more surplus value. So, you know, enterprises, businesses, production should be managed in a way so that it's beneficial for all of us, not just so that it creates surplus value for a handful of billionaires who could give a shit about, you know, if their production is destroying the planet, you know, or if their production and labor standards are harmful to others.
Amount of money, and then if you surpass that, you're just hoarding.
And then we've seen what people with billions of dollars are doing with their money. They're going to space for fun. Like,
Right.
Clearly, if we tax those people properly, they get their wealth and distribute it to people who need it, that'd be a much better use than going to space for fun.
Yeah, they're arguing for taxes, and of course, like, I would argue that production needs to be organized in a completely different way. Capitalist production is inherently antagonistic, so that when you go to work every day, your labor is being exploited. Materially exploited. Someone is taking the surplus value that is created by your labor. So you go to work every single day and you make someone richer and richer and richer and richer and richer, and they're getting rich by stealing the value of your labor. So we don't need to tax those people more. You know, we need to change the way that production is organized. You know, maybe that means taxing people more at first, you know, in the transition to socialism, but eventually, you know, production needs to be organized in a completely different way that's not inherently antagonistic.
Personally, I don't think there's an issue with billionaires existing. The issue for me is that they need to be held accountable the same way poor people do. And I'm talking about the justice system.
When you look at a lot of billionaires who have gotten that way because of the just
Facts. That was a good point. She brought up the justice system. So, you know, of course there's two justice systems for the rich and the poor, right? 91% of cases don't even see trial, by the way. But, you know, when wealthy people are put on trial, they can buy the best lawyers. You know, they can buy the best lawyers possible. They can buy the best legal advice possible. You know, you rarely see rich people locked up for very long periods of time, despite the fact that Wall Street crimes are rampant and they affect more people than, you know, than petty crimes, which people are thrown in jail for. So there's absolutely two justice systems for the rich and the poor, and if you deny that, you're insane. So I appreciate that person bringing that up.
Incredible amount of value they've given to society. I won't even talk about a huge, crazy billionaire. I'll talk about Jay-Z, who's a billionaire. He made amazing music. That's how he became a billionaire. And so I don't think it's the government's job to interject and say, okay, you have too much, we need to give it away. I mean, it would also never happen in any other arena. No one's gonna go, hey, Simone Biles, you have too many gold medals.
Jay-Z became a producer of others. So Jay-Z was a musical artist, you know, but he made it by becoming a capitalist, right? He used all the money he made from being a worker in the music industry to then being a producer. And, you know, he still does a lot of work, but I'm sure he has tons of passive income because he owns stock in, like, record companies, or he might even own his own record company. I'm not sure exactly how it works. But he became a capitalist, right? He used his finances that he got from being a worker, which technically, I guess, rap artists are exploited workers, and there's all sorts of problems with that in the music industry. They'll change your art and make it so it sells a lot, you know, try and maximize the amount of money that they can make off your art. To being one of the exploiters, to being one of the owners of, you know, these music producing companies who exploit their workers.
We're going to take them from you, and we're going to give them to the other people who weren't as talented as you.
I completely agree.
I completely disagree. I feel like that is the government's job. And Jay-Z, like you said, Jay-Z made his money from music. That's his labor. He's a musician. He's selling his talent. But then when he invested in the alcohol, then he's using other people who are harvesting the wheat, the agave. They're breaking their back. They're using their labor.
So do you think that he should invest in those people?
He said what I said. Good job, Jay-Z became a capitalist. He said exactly what I said.
Should they just like say, the hell with your dreams, I'm not going to invest in you?
And this is capitalist realism, right? Oh, so he shouldn't have invested in those people? So he shouldn't have given those people jobs? No, those people should have had jobs regardless of what Jay-Z chose to do. They should have had their job, their employment, their livelihood shouldn't be dependent on the goodwill of Jay-Z. You should all thank Jay-Z for your manual labor jobs where you harvest agave. And capitalist mindset, neoliberal mindset at its worst.